Welcome to the Real Recovery Show. We are every Friday at noon, and we have now entered into our second season. And I'm super grateful for everything that this radio station has provided for us. We are having another radio station that we're going to be shifting to, and I'm excited about that too, and the possibilities of that as well. But I just want to say again, I'm probably just going to keep saying this ad nauseum, that I am like so internally grateful for Johan and PHLV Radio, because I had no idea that I was going to have a show. And like I did a show years ago, an internet radio show in my pajamas, and nobody ever saw me, and that's how I liked it. And I got interviewed on a show here at PHLV Radio, and on forgiving your mother for Mother's Day, and it was so powerful, and I loved it so much. And he asked me to come and have a show here too. And God, how God works through people. It's just been such an amazing experience. I personally have grown so much, and I've gotten to connect with people and have conversations that I otherwise wouldn't have. And today I'm excited to have another conversation with somebody that I find very inspiring and focused, and he's overcome a lot, and I'm really excited to see where he goes. And so today's episode is going to be an interview with Rob Banghart, right? Banghart, yeah. and he's coming up on 5 years sober, clean and sober off of drugs and alcohol, in a few days, right?
Yeah, almost there.
Yeah. So and the theory is you get your marbles back, but I haven't gotten my marbles back yet, so I don't really know how true that is. I don't even know where that came from.
And me either.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, people always said I should sell bags of marbles at the recovery store, and I just picture marbles on the ground like everywhere. I don't know why, so I was like,
checks out.
But yeah, so welcome. Thank you for
me.
joining us on the Real Recovery Show. Definitely just want to jump into your story. So you have so much to share, and start off with what was little Rob like in your childhood.
Little Rob. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think I'm one of those varieties that I believe I was born with it, genetically passed down, because I can remember like very early on, like I'm 5, 6, 7 years old, and I had that, what I know now is like that uncomfortability with being me, right? Mm-hmm. I never fit in, and I always use the term like a square peg in a round hole. It didn't matter where I was or what I was doing, and I was always kind of compensating or pulling away, you know what I mean? There was never that comfortable middle, and obviously that would come later, but I had a lot of trauma, a lot of things going on, a lot of this disease in my family, for sure, and a lot of...
Were your parents in addiction, or...?
My father was, yeah. My father was active and then disappeared when I was very young. Divorced my mom, and I think my mom finally said enough, She had put up with it for a couple of years, and he took off, never saw him again, and then I had an uncle, kind of like, I call it like the trifecta in my life. There was like 3 men in my life that I looked up to, and this is like the nature of what I have, right? Like, It was my dad, even though he was never around, right? Like the image of, the illusion of, right? And it was an uncle and a grandfather. So, mind you, I've got an amazing stepfather who I call my father, who raised me as his own, blood, sweat, and tears, right? But I'm incapable of honoring that, right? Even at a young age, right? And
because he's not your real father?
Yeah, like I had built a case, right? Like the normal story, and anything to separate myself from like what's good, and even at a young age, that's how I know. And so my uncle was in and out of prison, so much so that like I think plexiglass is a part of his visual, you know, and when I picture him, and
wow,
active in addiction, all the same things, doing all the stuff that we do back home, and my grandfather was probably a hard drinker, but not anywhere near me, and never saw him drink ever in my life, and like an old World War II veteran type guy, super family guy, great guy. But what happens is when I'm 14 years old, they all pass away. My grandfather passes away, and my father a man shows up at my front door. I've never met him before. It's my uncle from that side of the family. Tells me my dad. At the time, they didn't know it was an overdose, or they were covering it up. I don't know, but they just said he was gone. So, and then
does it have anything to do with your grandfather dying, or it was just
two
same
separate
time?
Yeah, same
Wow.
time. And then my uncle then took off and came to Las Vegas. So all of the male figures in my life that I was willing to look up to were now gone. And not that I needed any reason, but of course I used it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm abandoned, poor me, all this stuff. And I started going, and it didn't.
Did you feel close to them, though? Like, here you are looking for them to give you what it is that you felt like you wanted, and here was your stepfather who was there. But, like, here you are, because when somebody's in their addiction, how available could they really be, right?
Right.
But did you feel close to your father, your uncle, and your grandfather?
My father, not at all. Obviously, I didn't know him. It was all an illusion. And I think there was, I had some sick hope in my head that he would come back and, all this stuff. And
it's kind of weird. And the only reason I'm saying this is because you and I do have a lot in common. It's just this idea, I feel like the things that I chased in drugs and alcohol was, the promise of feeling better. I was, everything for the potential of it. I will take the drug and the alcohol because I believe it's going to do this for me. I will go and be with this person for the potential of that situation. And I found that a lot of that is because I have, mommy and daddy issues. Just, putting energy into my parents who are both in addiction, looking for them to finally turn around and go, oh, you are my daughter.
Yeah.
I love you so much, and so here you are, looking to where you're not necessarily going to get what it is, and turning your back on where you could actually reasonably get what it is. But their approval or their something was something that you were already chasing before you even started.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of that, and it was also my mother and my stepfather, like I said, my father, they were holding me accountable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And of course, defiance is my nature.
Responsibility, screw that.
Yeah, so of course they were.
They look like they're having fun over here.
Yeah.
We just go there.
And I always gravitated, at a very young age, gravitated towards all that stuff. I'm not the person that had the aha moment. I have no idea what that is. It's just not in my story. It was always around me.
Yeah.
But if I really look back and get detailed, I always gravitated towards it, right? There was no drugs in my house.
Yeah.
There was no alcohol in my house.
You sought it.
100%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the time,
yeah.
It's always around,
yeah.
right?
I love that.
Of course. Yeah. And so they all passed away, and the next 3 years was pretty intense, and then I went to prison at a pretty young age. I got locked up. I was low-level distribution. It was like Class B.
Okay.
So I go to prison, and I have a kind of I'm 47 years old right now, okay? I kind of have a baby face right now. Could you imagine at 17? You know what I mean? Scared to death. And I always use this, right? If fear was enough to make me stop, right? That's how I know that I have an issue, right?
Right.
I'm on this bus, I'm chain ganged to a bunch of old men with tattoos and all these things, and I'm coming out of this small town, now I'm in a city, and we pull up to this reception area, and it was shaped like, they call it the starfish. It's not the official name, but it looks like a starfish, just 5 buildings kind of shaped out, and the bus pulls up in the middle, you get out, and they tell you where you're going, and I get out, and I'm not even in the building yet, and I see caution tape. And there's a part of an eyeball on the ground.
Josh!
You know what I mean? I'm already scared to death.
Jeez.
You know what I mean? I'm not that guy. And
right.
So I did 3 years, and when I got out, I had this feeling, and for some reason, again, maybe a justification or just a lack of awareness, but I thought to myself that the anxiety I was feeling was because I was getting out, right? And I know now, having done some work, that it was really that I knew I was going back to exactly the same thing.
Without tools.
100% knew it was going to happen. And it did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I did that for a couple more years there. And I think, like all of us, the duality of it, I was able to hold jobs, which is weird, right? But again, looking back at after having done some work, why was I able to hold these jobs? Because they were these incubators for that behavior, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to be a nurse at a hospital, right? I want to be a chef in a kitchen where they're drinking all day long and partying all night long, and
where it's okay.
Yeah, and my bad behavior doesn't look so bad because everybody's bad. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I did that for a year, but like I was able to do that.
Incubator for bad behavior.
Yeah.
God, I love that.
100%. You know what I mean? And I was able to build a career. You know what I mean? Which is like the dichotomy of my disease, right? Like I'm building this career. Everything else in my life is in shambles.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I totally understand that.
Yeah, I'm making good money, but I have nothing in the bank.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Nothing to show for it. And I started getting pulled over a lot because I lived in a small town. I had to drive far from my job, come back. I'd get pulled over all the time. And again, the time I'm living in self-will, I think that they're picking on me, right? Mind you, I just got out of prison. You know what I mean? Mind you, I'm up to no good all the time. You know what I mean? And still, they were trying to help me out.
Right.
They would pull me over. They do the renewal run, but then they talk to me like, "Hey, listen, you obviously," and they were just trying to help me.
Like
and
you don't want you to have to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the stuff, and they're the enemy, of course.
Yeah, you can't hear it though.
Yeah, not at all. They might as well have been speaking Chinese.
Yeah.
And so I get this great idea, like all of us, that I'm going to do a geographical, you know what I mean? So I'm going to come from my small town in New Jersey, and I'm going to go to Las Vegas to change my life, which, if I'm living the right way of life, is an amazing plan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if I'm not,
Vegas
it doesn't
is
really,
not,
it really doesn't matter where I go, you know what I mean? If I'm not
I always find it fascinating, and people even chuckle to themselves when they say that they came to Las Vegas to like do better and have like sobriety or whatever like that, and unless you're like ready,
it doesn't matter.
Vegas is going to give you the mirror of everything that you really want until
Times
you
10.
get to a place where you really want sobriety.
Yeah. I mean, I low-key wish they brought me to my bottom quicker, you would have thought, you know what I mean? But I'm just apparently of the stubborn variety, you know, and I continued the same way, just a lot of working at some really nice restaurants. I was working for Wolfgang Puck, I'm working for Emeril Lagasse, I'm working at the Venetian, Mandalay Bay, all these places, and I had this moment. My first job in town was at Spagos for Wolfgang Puck, right? At the time, it's like the It restaurant. It was before all these other places opened up, and I landed, and of course, I had never heard of a drug test before in my life, so I couldn't work in any of the hotels. And I get this job working there, and I'm working my butt off, and I'm not getting in trouble all of a sudden. And of course, my mind tells me that I figured it out. You know what I mean? I figured out the right
I've solved it.
Yeah, you know
my life can be normal now.
Now, mind you, I'm not driving.
Right.
I'm walking to work, so that solves about 50% of my problems, you know? And I'm working in a restaurant in Las Vegas where everybody's drinking and getting high.
Like
so
you've adapted and adjusted around the behavior so that the behavior can continue with, like, you've quarantined it off of affecting negatively the other thing that you want just for the time being.
Yeah, I just took away variables. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
now
I
it's
did
like
the same thing.
less and less, right? My world's getting smaller.
You don't want to get a DUI. Don't drive.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to get a
Not
possession
don't drink.
charge. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
And then I had this moment there where I thought for sure, I got a call from the chef. The chef says, "Hey, Wolfgang's coming to town. He wants to meet with you." And really what it was, he was meeting with every employee. I heard he wanted to meet with me, of course, right? And I thought for sure, like, this is my moment. You know what I mean? He's going to recognize me for all the amazing work I'm doing. And he sits me down and he basically reads me the riot act. Like, he tells me all about myself, and it tells me how he would like to help me, and You're like, you do great work, but you're really uncomfortable and miserable to be around. You're always, describing me to a T, and incapable of any kind of, I just said, okay, walked away and got another job, just left, right? The internal geographical, and I did that for years, and along the way I got married. I had a kid. I was married for 10 years to my first wife. She was a saint, and I say that because she put up with me for 10 years. I don't know how she did it. I couldn't have done it, and she was there for the collapse. Like, she was there for all of it, and by the end of that, I was laying in a bed on methadone for 2 years, and I'm a huge proponent of all those things, but if you're not ready, it doesn't matter, and I wasn't ready. Yeah. So tail end of that, she kicks me out. Finally, and she got tired of me army crawling into her parents' bedroom to steal their jewelry and, causing scenes at the house, all the things that
Army crawling?
Oh, yeah.
On the ground?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, it's so cute.
Yeah, they're sleeping in the
I
bed.
love your
I'm sneaking through.
Like, the visual of it, just army crawling.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
I'm going for the hidden skull.
Yeah, like you stop for a second. Okay, that was a noise. Nope, everybody's good. They're sleeping. Okay, keep going.
Somebody home, So, I did that for a while. She kicked me out, and I got locked up pretty quickly after that. Like a little, a little charge, whatever. I went to county for, I don't know. I'd be lying if I told you a term. I just know it was nothing too crazy. And 2 years later, I got out. 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 when I got out, I had nowhere to go, So that was really my first experience with recovery at all. Like before that, I'd only known the other side. I had no experience, no knowledge, nothing. And I showed up at a house that was like the bottom of, the end of the road house.
Yeah.
Like you're only going there
The
if you got
house on the block.
Yeah, nowhere else will take me. And they had a really harsh. I shouldn't say harsh. That's the wrong word. A very stern, and direct manager who just told me, "You're going to do this, or you're going to get out." And at that time, it's what I needed. It kind of shook me. You know what I mean? I was scared enough to not. I didn't at that point. I'd never been homeless. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be homeless, and I was tired of the way I was living. But I wouldn't say that I was defeated yet. If that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like it was like a respite kind of. But so I jumped in. I did all the things they told me to do. You know what I mean? And I think for me, looking back on it now, what I see is that everything came back very quickly, and I just wasn't properly armed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wasn't.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, many times in my life I've thought, and I've seen this happen many times in other people too, like where you think you've hit a bottom. And because your life has gotten relatively intolerable to you. And so you're willing to do stuff because you're afraid of it getting more intolerable and you really can't stand it the way that it is. But then some of the things that have made it intolerable change into being tolerable again. And now you're back to like running the show and doing the things and trying to like be good. And yet the cause and condition of why we used never really got dealt with.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like cancer. It's like in remission, but then it comes back because it was never really truly dealt with,
Yeah.
I feel that so true about when you said earlier, if fear was enough, then seeing half an eyeball on the ground when you got to prison you would have been scared straight, like that whole program, remember? Yeah. Which didn't work on me, but I digress. But like the fear was never enough for me. It was enough to stop me for a moment and like rattle me for a second, get my attention.
Yeah.
But fear was one of the reasons I used. So if I don't have a tool or some sort of like insight or some sort of shift in my perception, and a way of dealing with the reasons I used, then you could make me feel pretty horrible with the things going on in my life, and it will make me worse.
Yeah.
It will make me, even if you tell me that drugs and alcohol are like one of the biggest causes for whatever's going on with me or any of my addictions, it will make me want the thing more. Because it's my woo-woo, it's my teddy bear, it's my comfort, it's my answer, it's my solution until I have a real clear idea on what my real problem is and I have a real better solution.
Yep.
That's I'm going to go back to. And so that's why, in my opinion, that's why a lot of people relapse, because they're not facing the real ism, the real thing that's going on underneath it all. And so when they get all the family back and the job back and their health back and they go, maybe I'm okay now.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do it now.
I think that's why they focus so much on willingness, right? Like it's very easy for me to be willing when I'm coming off a 5-year homeless runner.
Oh, for
you know what I
sure.
mean? It's a whole other thing when I've got the car, the girl, the house, and maybe I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then willingness is a little bit harder.
And unfortunately, that's the reason why the bottom gets lower and lower and lower, because it has to be that much more worse and before maybe I'm willing to look at what's really going on, and sometimes it's too late.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's it's more than just death institutions, or what's the other one, or jail. It's more than that. It's also the light being off, and living a life that's like just to live, that's just to exist, and not having
just paddling water.
Whether you're homeless physically or not, to completely just feel like it's all survival and miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So that time I got everything back, and immediately my ego returned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I thought for sure that I was
Eagles are very resilient.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I got this handled, like, and, typical answer, nothing, no secrets. I started to drift, right? And all of a sudden, the insanity returns, and it was kind of weird. Like, clearly I'm stubborn because I was able to...
How old were you then?
I was 32.
Okay.
Yeah, so, like I said, clearly I'm stubborn, though. I was able to hold on for, like, 3 years. And I don't know why, but somebody had asked me to attend a recovery event that night, and I showed up for some reason, no idea why. I hadn't been in, like, a year. And I went home that night and I put a needle in my arm. Like the insanity was, I just couldn't take it anymore. You know what I mean? And I was homeless within a month. At the time I was married to my second wife. I had, the BMW, I had the car, the apartment, all the things. I had really built it up. But I think truthfully it was already breaking down. You know what I mean? It was already starting to crack, and my behavior had really shifted, and it was happening long before it was happening, type of thing. And that was just the culmination of it.
Yeah.
So within a month, I had told her very clearly when we got together. I said, "Listen, I know the way that I am. If I ever relapse, take everything and run. No hard feelings." And she did. And month later, I'm in that apartment. I've sold whatever she left to the dope man. You know what I mean? Whatever I can get money for, get some dope for, and then I had nowhere to go. And I was at a different type of crossroads. It was weird, and even in that moment, I had fear, right? I had insecurity. I didn't know, but it was not even close to enough to get me to stop. I couldn't, and
because there's a resignation too.
Yeah.
There's just this resignation that, like, even though I'm afraid, the fear or the issue with getting help is somehow worse than just staying and doing the next thing that's in front of me.
Yeah.
In the wrong direction, maybe, but it's just too much.
And I feel like everybody's story is individual and powerful because it's theirs, right?
Yeah.
And what my head was telling me in that moment was that I was too old. Right? I was...
Interesting.
All these things, right?
Too old.
Yeah, like I had wasted too much of my life. Like
it's too late.
Yeah, this is just the
it's
life
too
I was
late.
dealt.
I've already, maybe for the younger people, they can get sober and have a life, but not me.
I had, like, some of the prime examples in my life, right? Mind you, I had great examples in my life.
Right.
My mom and my dad are amazing examples.
Your stepdad.
Yeah. But of course, what am I doing?
Right.
I'm focusing on what's going to allow me to continue to do.
Yeah.
And really with not even like a thought process. It just happened,
Yeah.
And so I left that apartment and ended up going to Catholic Charities. And I started like a little work program for like a week or two. I met some guys, lowest common denominator again, and found my people. And I was homeless, living on Four Master. I lived on Four Master for about a year. Back before all the complexes and everything, when it was just all of us out there on the streets, and...
What's a floor master?
Four Master is a street right next to Catholic Charities.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, at one point, it was like a massive hub for the homeless that were living outside.
Oh, interesting.
Now it's kind of like some of that, but a lot more services available, like the courtyard, things like that. And
how interesting.
And a part of that's the homeless triangle. Right, so the Catholic Charities, the Rescue Mission, and Salvation Army. So that was kind of the area that I hung out in, and I was doing things to further my habit, and it caught up to me, and I decided again, geographical. Even in the midst of my addiction, even homeless, I'm doing geographicals, and so I went up to the Rescue Mission because that's so far away, no one's going to find me. You know what I mean? And really what it was is the Rescue Mission was like, out of the three, was the one that was kind of a little bit away. Not too many people. Like if they went up there, you knew something was going on. And I went there and I lived at a wonderful establishment called the Moulin Rouge.
Who were you afraid of finding you?
Oh, just in the psychosis, you know what I mean? In the moment. Like I was doing things, make no mistake about it, 100%. Yeah. I'm not by any means a hardened criminal.
Yeah.
I'm like the petty thief guy.
Right.
I'm the opportunity guy and, take your money and run guy. Right. You know what I mean? That's me. And,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You need a fresh start.
Yeah, and I was
New
like,
people.
I was selling dope down there. You know what I mean? I was, and I had got myself caught up in some stuff, and just the chaos of being out there. So I said, fresh start. We're gonna head to the Rescue Mission. I go there, and I'm under the bridge for a while, and then I get introduced to the Moulin Rouge. It's a great establishment. It's been closed for about 40 years. And about 300 of us lived in there. And I was there the entire time they were tearing it down. Like literally to the last building, I was in there. No windows, no doors, and And then the day came, a friend came up to me and said that, hey, I live over here. Why don't you come hang out with me? It's this tunnel. I'm like, I'd never even heard it. Never even heard of it. And it was like literally a couple hundred feet from where I stayed every single day. So he took me there, and I looked at it, and when I first saw it, it was like I was looking at a house. Like the same feeling I get when I'm looking at my apartment when I come home right now is the same feeling I had, because I think like my inner disease knew I can go down there, use the way I wanted to use, nobody would bother me. And then like there was the illusion of like, I've got shelter, I've got this. And some of it was true, right? Like being homeless is pretty rough, right?
How do
Like,
you know, when we're like on drugs, the drugs do the thinking. The drugs
100%.
do the thinking. They tell us where we need to be, what we need to do, where we need to go. They tell us what's good and what's bad. It's like that whole thing, like the man takes the drink, then the drink takes the drink, and then the drink takes the man. It's like you can hear like the drugs excitement to be in a place where it could have its own its experience. It's like, it's crazy how possessed we are when we're in addiction. It's not even our real thoughts.
Yeah.
But this is what we believe. This happens to this day. To this day, I'll have ideas, not about drugs and alcohol, but about, there's a part of my mind that still wants to tell me what's right for me and what's good for me, and it doesn't really resonate, and I have to watch for that. But that's what I mean. Like, I picture you in the tunnel and being like, I'm home.
Yeah.
And like, what is home? It's, well, I can be not bothered. I can focus on just getting my hit, doing what I need to do, and I'll have less conflict around that.
Yeah, that was the truth. And being homeless in itself was its own challenge, obviously, the randomness of violence and all the things that go on out there, right? And then it gave me like this false sense of like, I call it the Lord of Flies experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
because everybody that lived there, we watched out for each other, but we were like horrible to each other too. You know what I mean? So nobody from the outside was going to mess with us, but internally it was very chaotic as well. And in the beginning, we had a mayor. We had a guy that was like, had the dope. He was in charge. Like he was, you know what I mean? People like...
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty common, And then it kind of devolved. And, by the time I had left that tunnel, it was pretty free-flowing. But, yeah, I was there for 2.5 years. I can remember times being down there for like weeks at a time and not coming out, because there would always be somebody that would go out. Somebody would go out to get something, and the thing about the Triangle is that like each of those places served a different meal. So like you would go, if you wanted breakfast, you know where to go, lunch and dinner, and the mission was dinner. So I would come out sometimes at night, go get some food real quick, and I only tell you that really because by the tail end of even that experience, I couldn't even go into the rescue mission to get food without being extremely high, because the guilt and shame was so overwhelming. And like, I would just get completely gacked out of my mind just to go in and get food.
Yeah.
Because there was so many people and like the volunteer, all the things, you know what I mean? Like,
and you knew what it was about and what it was really for, and you just,
It was almost like I had to take it to venture into this territory. It was so weird. And like, I don't know that I really understood what was going on at that time. Now, having unpacked it, I see for what it was. You know what I mean?
But your insight's great. I love your insight around it. I love when people want to understand how their mind worked.
Yeah, I want to not repeat it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Sober. I don't,
yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
And because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Right. Even now, if I don't stay connected, if I drift off into my
isolation.
tunnel,
there is that inner. Whatever that in our, I mean, I don't want to scare anybody because, like, I do have like some time, but like, there is something that if I'm not spiritually fit, starts to tell me that my answer is in spending more time alone.
Yeah.
What is that? That's the same shit I did as a child before I even started using anything.
Mine will show up like that, but what I've also seen is that I can be around a lot of people because I'm always around a lot of people. Right. And not be honest.
Right.
Not be willing to talk about.
In some way, not really be there.
In some way, I am isolating, 100%, and it's a dangerous space for me.
It is a dangerous place, especially when you know that's how you tick, and that's what we like to do. We like to find out our own cause and condition so that we can watch out for what our own ways that we start not feeding the recovery, but feeding the addictive kind of thinking, whether or not we even think, I'm not going to drink or do drugs again, but I just need to pull back. I just need to not go to this thing. I just need to not talk to somebody. I don't have to call that person, whatever like that. There's like a sort of headspace that starts to like say, hey, you don't really need that. You need this instead. Yeah. So we're going to take a break right now and go to our commercial. Please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them and do not represent any 12-step program or should replace your own intuition or professional medical advice. And see you in a bit. Thank you. The Meeting Space is a facility with over 100 weekly recovery meetings for addiction from alcohol, drugs, sex, food, gambling, codependency, and PTSD. When someone is scared to go to their first meeting, we walk them through the process, ask them and answer questions to assuage their concerns. Many are court-ordered to attend, and we provide free court papers and teach them the process. Our glass-enclosed, soundproof children's playroom enables parents to be in a meeting while watching their children. We have healing workshops, craft fairs, and special authors who come to teach and sit with our fellowships. During COVID, we were declared an essential business by the County Commissioner's Office. We were kept open so that we can continue our daily work with traumatized chronic relapsers and those who would have used alcohol or drugs in isolation. Local businesses rent our space as well to financially help with this mission, and they get to have a great location for their business meeting or training. The recovery store in the center of our facility provides literature, clothing, medallions, and custom gifts to encourage, aid in, and celebrate a person's recovery from alcohol, drugs, PTSD, or unhealthy behaviors. Both the recovery store and the meeting space are open every day, including holidays. Saving lives, educating the community, reducing social stigma, providing a safe place for people to heal. Our nonprofit is supported entirely by donations by people like you who want everyone to have a place to go to heal. Welcome back to The Real Recovery Show. You can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, on Amazon Fire TV. You can listen to us on the PHLV radio app, or you can get our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. And you can go to themeetingspace.com. That's themeetingspace.com. And you can click on The Real Recovery Show there and watch all of our episodes posted there. Or you can just Google The Real Recovery Show. You got to really write The Real Recovery Show, because there's a recovery show too. And then or go to YouTube and type in The Real Recovery Show, and you can see all of our episodes there. And if you're wanting to be on a future episode or you have a really good idea, let me know. You can fill out an intake form on themeetingspace.com, or you can contact us through the contact form. All right, so we're back, and I feel like that's all I was supposed to tell you in that. And so now we're in the tunnels, and so take us to the next place.
So I'm in the tunnels. I've been there for, like I said, about 2.5 years total, and I think what happened, and this is just my interpretation of it after some time looking at it, is that for the last 6 months I was in the tunnels, probably longer, that I had this desire to just want it to all end, right? It wasn't that I wanted to kill myself. It wasn't that I had a plan. It was just please God, let this be over. You know what I mean? Just however, whenever. And I was ODing a lot. I think it was kind of now obviously working in treatment so long that I think it was fentanyl coming in. You know what I mean? Because I'm a lifelong heroin addict, and I never, never had any ODs other than the first, maybe in the very beginning, right? And I grew up back east where it was all China White, which is way more powerful than the black tar out here. And I started ODing, and I remember this one night I was under the bridge. I OD'd and taken to the hospital. And the first time when you OD, they don't strap you down; they just take you. It's like a call. And I wake up and I walk out of UMC and I run back to the bridge by the rescue mission. I could see the bridge. It's nighttime. It's well lit up. And I fell out from the same shot. That had never happened to me with heroin ever in my life. So I'm pretty sure it was the fentanyl. And I also had this impending doom feeling, right? I knew I just believe this in my heart that I know that I'm a decent person, that you just cannot act a certain way for so long enough and not have consequences, right? And it was some form of that was wrapping around my mind, and it just kept coming. And so the tail end of my homelessness, I I had scored. I use that term loosely. Scored was like I came up on an opportunity, right? So I had like some phones, some jewelry, some things, and the Cubans ran the neighborhood that I was homeless in. So every time that I came up, I would go to them and make sure I gave them something, right? And they'd always watch out for me because, again, everybody's always looking for me. So,
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
So, and they would give me like little things to do from time to time, little hustles. And I think what happened was that I flashed too much. Like, it was like daytime. I think some people saw it, or maybe even them. Maybe they were tired of me and they turned. I don't know. But I went through under the bridge, did that. I went to the...
And by flash, you mean showing that you have
like
something?
this is what I found,
Yeah,
what do
yeah,
you want, you know what I mean? And I had sold a couple things under the bridge too, so it could have been anybody, whatever. But went to my tunnel, I chopped on the train tracks, and I went down about maybe half a block. And there was these 4 businesses that faced the train tracks. And I use the term businesses very loosely. Like, I don't even know if they were legal.
Okay.
And if you weren't from that area, nobody knew they were there. You know what I
Okay.
mean? It was like
For
a car
sure.
parts store, a
Businesses.
window tinting store. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But, like, the traffic was always sketchy.
Right.
You know what I mean? And always at night.
Right.
But I had developed a relationship with the first business. This guy, he would, like, fence stuff for me. Fence. He would take some stuff in trade for money. Fence makes me sound so much cooler. It's not.
Right?
It's not that cool at all. And
Right.
I dropped a bunch of stuff to him. He said, "Hey, come back in an hour." I've been using him for a long time. I said, "Okay." I went and got high, and when I came back, there was 3 guys waiting for me, and these 3 guys had an axe, a knife, and a pipe. Again, the fear, right? I know what's about to happen. I cannot run away because if I run away, I'm going to lose the next one, right? And so I started walking up. They attacked me the whole 9 yards, and you know. I got hit in the head with a hatchet 3 times.
Zhuzh.
So here I got scars. I got all the scars, right?
Is that
Stabbed
what
in
that
my,
one's from, like right over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I almost lost my ear. They broke my jaw. They lacerated my liver, and they stabbed me in the leg. They hit me in the head with a pipe a couple times too. I think like other places, like I've got some defensive wounds from it, and they killed me. Dragged me on the train tracks, which were right there, and they left me, right? So this is how, you know, God shows up in my life, right? Or how I finally recognize that God is showing up in my life, right? The first business, I had cultivated a relationship with this guy that worked like an overnight guy, like kind of like a security watchman. And he was only there like 3 nights a week, but I had cultivated a relationship over the years. We'd get high together once in a while. He'd feed me, you know, and he happened to be working. He called. As it started, he called right away. So I'm laying there dead on the train tracks. Ambulance comes, cops come, they pull me off the train tracks. The train comes. They revive me. I wake up. I think I'm fighting for my life. They give me morphine for the pain. I die again. Boom, I wake up in the hospital. I wake up in the hospital 3 days later. I still think I'm fighting for my life. You know what I mean? And I had this nurse like yelling at me, and really what she was trying to do was calm me down because I was ripping and pulling, and I've got all the breathing and tubes and the beeping, and immediately followed by my second God shot, right? Like I feel a hand touch my forehead, and I feel the presence of something in the room, like something so massive and peaceful but powerful, and I hear calm down. So like God came to me through morphine, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't water that down in any way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? He came how he came, and I spent about a month in that hospital. I'm sorry, I spent 4 days in that hospital on life support doing that, and then I got transitioned to like a what do they call those, rehabilitation hospital. I had swelling of the brain, so my memory was horrible, which is an amazing thing if you're new in recovery, because you can't remember any of your resentments, any of your anger, any of your fears. It goes away almost immediately.
We're not recommending this.
I wouldn't recommend it, but if you find yourself there,
it's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
I had epilepsy from the drugs, and I couldn't remember a lot of things for a long time, and I was just like, it'll come as it's supposed to come.
Yeah, he'll reveal more as it's ready. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I did that, and I had a broken jaw, but they couldn't wire it because of the swelling in my brain. They thought I might. I had stitches and staples, and I had to do all the learning how to walk, learning how to talk, and a lot of my cognitive was completely off because of all the injuries. So like you would ask me a question, and I would answer you 5 minutes later. You know, and it sat me down though. You know what I mean? Like I used that word stubborn before, and I don't say that because like I'm any different than any other person in recovery. You know what I mean? But it's just how I can relate to it, right? Like it sat me down. I had no choice. I couldn't get up even if I wanted to. You know, and what happened for me in that hospital, the rehabilitation hospital, was that some friends showed up. You know what I mean? They showed up and they laid out a plan for me, and it wasn't like this drastic, like patents taken Normandy thing. It was just like, hey, this is what's next.
Yeah.
Do you want to try it? And I was broken enough to say, okay, you know what I
To
mean?
recovery.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
was it. Like, that was it. It was not like some declaration of I'm going to take the whole thing in one shot. It was like, okay, you know, that's better than where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like, that's about the amount of willingness that I had in the moment. And I left there. I went to a treatment center where I began my journey in recovery, and I got there and I couldn't get in. I couldn't get medically cleared because of all my injuries, you know, and I thought for sure this is where I get dropped, right? I thought for sure all the fear, everything came back, and again, God showed up, right? Like I'm in a car. 20 minutes later, I'm going to a sober living that's in the northwest side of town, which me and my best friend now manage. You know what I mean? And I was there for 4 days. 4 days. I walked out the front door to go to the gas station to buy like a soda. It's like 100 feet and 100 feet, one turn. It took me 20 minutes to get there, and it took me 6 hours and like 14 phone calls to get back. I had a moment. I couldn't remember. I just kept walking. I had to call somebody. You know what I mean? Like, that's how lost I was.
Yeah.
And but on that fourth day at that house, the owner of the treatment center, who would later become a mentor, friend, family, you know what I mean, and one of my greatest supporters, showed up, saw me, was talking to my now best friend also, you know what I mean, just coordinating this whole thing, quarterbacking it, right? Like, God's got his fingers in everything. And next day I was back in that treatment center. And all the things were waived. And it took me, like, I got a 30-day scholarship, so I did 30 days in an inpatient facility, and then I asked for another 30 days. Like, I just knew I wasn't ready to go out into the world yet, you know?
Yeah.
And what happened was, in that 60 days, obviously, completely reintroduced to recovery. It was like boot camp. You know what I mean? Just meeting all the things. And but also, I was introduced to Shine a Light.
Yeah.
Like, mind you, I came out through Shine a Light, but I didn't really understand it. You know what I mean? I couldn't at the time. Just, I saw these guys coming in every Saturday.
But did you know about them when you were in the tunnels?
I didn't.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
But now you found out about it and you're like, wow, you know the tunnels. So
Yeah.
that's amazing.
I think at the time it was very much smaller, obviously, and my tunnel was not a very accessible tunnel.
Gotcha.
My tunnel was not a tunnel that you would have known about unless you were like in the area.
Right. It was far off where you felt that nobody was going to reach you.
100%.
So yeah.
100%.
Okay.
And so I saw them doing that. I started asking questions and talking, and I got out of that treatment center, went back to that same sober living, right? And I spent about 9 months there. But once I landed, I did all the things, you know what I mean? And for me, just my experience, right, the gift of desperation is the greatest gift I was ever given. You know what I mean? The greatest, because it made me willing to do anything, whatever, however, you know what I mean? Because I'm not capable of that on my own.
Yeah.
Rob will never make that decision.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And they told me, I asked to volunteer for Shine a Light. They said, yeah, come out once a month. And of course, like any great, you know, I'm there every Saturday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Never listened,
course.
you know what I mean? I've been doing it for the better part of 5 years now.
Love
you know?
it. I love that.
I had an amazing story when I was sitting at that sober living. I was out on the patio, and I was probably, I'm guessing, 6 to 8 months sober.
Okay.
I'm sitting on the patio, and I get a call from the sister, right? My sister lives in New York, right? Mm-hmm. My biological father leaves, goes on, starts a whole other family, right? She's like 5 years old when he passes away. I was 14. I didn't know her for most of my life. I met her in adult life, you know, and we become very close, like best friends. I relapse. I go back out. She's still there for me, you know, rekindle. She calls me crying, and I'm like, what's going on? She goes,
now that you're sober, she calls you.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
She goes, I need you to listen to me. I need to tell you this story, and I don't want you to think I'm crazy.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, tell me the story, you know? She goes, I called a psychic. I gave him my information, and he stopped me. And he goes, somebody's coming through. She's like, you lost somebody close to you, a father figure. She goes, yeah, my dad died. And the psychic goes, well, your father has a message. Your father says, tell your brother this is his last chance. I was with him at the hospital. I put my hand on his forehead. If he doesn't get it this time, it's his last chance.
Oh, I just got the chills all over my body. Yeah, look at the goosebumps.
Yeah. Now, mind you, now fast forward.
She didn't even know about that
idea.
Experience. That's what's so powerful about when you know. Oh my God.
She doesn't know the details of my story. In a general way, like she's.
It's really hot in this studio, so I appreciate the goosebumps. We have like a little bit of AC issue, so like keep telling me good stories because I can cool down.
So we fast forward like I guess 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. I go with a couple friends to get a tattoo, right? And they pick a tattoo that I'm not putting on my body. It's no big deal. I'm just not doing it. So I'm looking around the room, and I can't find anything. Mind you, like I love dragons. There's dragons everywhere.
Right.
But for some reason, nothing's
Right.
calling me.
Yeah.
But this little thing over his shoulder, it looks like a little kid wrote it. It says, last chance. I can't, but at the time, I'm not putting it together, right? So I'm looking at it, and I go, I want that. Something happened with his wife. He had to leave. We leave, right? I come back. I get last chance because I put it together.
Where did you put it?
Right here.
Okay.
Now, mind you, the tattoo shop is called Last Chance.
Oh!
So, like, I completely missed, like,
that's
it's
so
Last
cute.
Chance all over the place, right? This little thing, you know what I mean?
wonder why. Yeah.
And I called my sister and I sent her a picture of it. I said, I just want you to know. Yeah. It's good stuff.
beautiful.
Like God, like, all through it,
Yeah.
And I've been really blessed, you know what I mean? I've been really
It's
blessed.
really interesting because, like, in your story, and this is a great message for anybody, I feel, and a great reminder for anybody, is that, God's there all the time, but we don't see the God shots.
Yeah.
We don't see that. We see it, like, never mind that I got out of that, never mind that this happened, never mind that that person showed up, never mind whatever. This happened, and I'm going to focus on the bad thing that I think happened, and I'm going to keep focusing on the bad things, and just think I'm all alone, and because that's selling me the story that I need to use. I need to do what I'm doing. It validates and rationalizes and justifies everything. So we've spent a lot of time in our addiction minimizing the God shots, dismissing them, talking ourselves out of even believing it, so that, because if it really is that something's looking out for us, if there really is that, then why are we doing what we're doing? And then in recovery, to seek a higher power, and whether you call it God or whatever, right? But to seek a higher power is to see where the hand of your higher power is. All of a sudden you go to a recovery event and you hear exactly what you need to hear that day.
Yeah.
Or things that you can't explain otherwise happen, and you're like, whoa. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
Like, for a quick example, one of my close friends is facing food addiction stuff right now, and was really, really struggling, and found herself at a fast food thing, and if you haven't had food addiction, it could be gnarly. Anyway, so she found herself at a fast food restaurant, like in the drive, just staring at the menu as if something magical was going to happen, and then she somehow was able to pull away, and she's like, okay, I'm just going to go to Vaughn's, I'm just going to go get, I'm going to be a good girl, and I'm going to get zucchini. And so she shows up to Vaughn's, and in the parking lot of Vaughn's is another person in recovery that she knows from another thing, and struggling with the exact same thing, had just gotten stomach staple, or whatever you call it, the stomach surgery or whatever, and was struggling too, and wanted to go do the wrong thing. And here they are having a conversation, and it's like they both acknowledge, like, you can't write this.
Yeah.
To really get, when we're in recovery, the God shots, to know, like, wow, you're going to think this is crazy. No, I'm not going to think it's crazy. I totally get, that your father's hand, and that's just beautiful.
Yeah.
That's just incredible.
I mean, like, I understand it was God. There's no doubt in my mind. You know what I mean? And just the way they show up, and like just.
And that gives us a lot more resolve.
Yeah.
It helps us, for as we go, because as we go, the cause and conditions, like the stuff that needs to heal, more gets revealed.
Yeah.
And we have to feel and believe in our recovery. We have to feel and believe that if we keep doing the next right step and we keep facing our stuff, that it's going to change, that we're going to level up. Because the disease of the mind, the drug addiction part of the mind, it wants to tell us that you can't, this is too much, I might as well just go do that. And we have to remember how bad it was, and we have to also remember how much we've come through. Yeah. And how much, like, you're a miracle, and like how many miracles have happened, and recognize that, what, if I can make it through all of that, then I can make it through this.
I think it's part of understanding. For me, it was part of being taught, right? Like, I obviously didn't have any of this knowledge, being taught by people that knew what they were talking about, like, the perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because I can remember with, like, as if it was yesterday, what it felt like 3 days out of prison with the right combination of her, the space, the drugs. The hair will stand up.
I
can feel it.
Yep.
But I can't remember with the same reverence what it was like to be homeless in a tunnel.
Yeah.
I know it was bad. I know it was hopeless. I know it was all these things, right? Those are facts. But the feelings aren't as connected to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the nature of what I have.
Yeah,
you know
we
what I mean?
forget.
Yeah.
We forget.
Like we're designed to forget.
I don't know about you. Like, you could tell me if this is true about you too. But like, in order to keep, like, even like you said, you had to get completely like high just to go to get a meal because you needed to blot out, you know, your awareness of your own shame, your own guilt, your own whatever. It's like, for me, there had to have been this minimizer. It's not that bad. You know, it's okay. I'm good. I'll be okay. You know, and like, in order to like continue the behavior that I was doing, I had to sell it to myself. I had to. And in order to do that, I had to say it wasn't that bad. It's not that bad. And so, and that's what made me go lower and lower. I'm a really low bottom drunk, alcoholic, drug addict, food addict, everything. I was homeless. I lost everything. Like, if you want to know the stuff, just go watch other shows. But I had to keep selling myself that next step down. I had to. And I had to tell myself it's going to be okay. And I had to tell myself that I just have to do this. I just have to do this just for today, you know, just to survive, just to be okay, just in this moment, because I'm so uncomfortable and I cannot deal otherwise. And so in recovery, I cannot summon up the suffering and humiliation and the way it really felt. I cannot do it of my own. I need to constantly hear other people tell me about their experience, and it comes back to me in those moments. It comes back to me on the show, listening to other people, and I go, oh, right, I remember that. You know, I remember that feeling. I remember thinking that way. Yeah. That's the kind of thing, working with each other and being in this recovery community where we're getting more and more honest and we're sharing about what it really feels like, and to see the person struggling helps me remember, right. Yeah. Like, that's how it is. That's how it was. I forgot. You forget because the mind doesn't want to think about that.
Yeah. So
you know?
There's a weird combination that happens all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to think about that anymore because I've got this new beautiful life, but like that's not the nature of what I have. I need to remember. Like, I wake up every morning. It's the same routine, right? Like I say, I have my routine, and part of it is trying to place myself back in that last week that I was homeless, right? Yeah. What were the feelings? What were the thoughts? What were the to try to do something to get me to remind me. Do you feel like
that's why one of the reasons you're attracted to Shine a Light and to doing all that, so that you don't forget?
I could spend 14 hours talking about, you know what I mean? I think for me, in the beginning, it was just service and connection, right? And let's be fair, you know, first year in recovery, probably some ego, right? I'm going to save everybody, all the Joan of Arc stuff, and some direction. And then I think once I settled into this thing and really was doing the work and started to join recovery, not so much sobriety, you know what I mean? And like, it became about 100% helping people. It became about the service. It became about bringing awareness to the topic. You know what I mean? Bringing awareness to the people and who we bring out with us, right? Like, in the beginning, I didn't think it was so much about who was there with us, and I thought there was a certain type of people could only help, you know what I mean? Obviously, my world is completely changed now, you know what I mean? And I've met some of the most amazing people that have volunteered with us, who have become some of my closest friends. People we've pulled out have joined us like we did, you know what I mean? It's like this whole... It's just like a movement. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because they buy in. They
the energy of that.
Yeah.
It's that is my high, man. Just the energy of the light going on, and the camaraderie, and the conversations, and the intimacy, and the transparency, and like, you know, because as much as like I wanted to isolate, you know, I had a really hard time, being vulnerable with people. I would always pull away from people whenever I felt a little bit too triggered, like maybe they got too close or saw too much or whatever.
Right.
You know, and that feeling you had where you felt like you had to like do a geographical because people would be like, so people don't find you. I feel like I've done that in my own ways, you know, without necessarily feeling like somebody's going to find me for stealing, but maybe somebody got too close or people might know me, and so I would shift and do something else, you know.
Yeah.
In recovery, I was called a Renaissance chick because I had so many different occupations. You know, it's like very sweet way to like spin that. But yeah, no, and it's good to know yourself. You know, so now so now you're focused on that, and that's just yeah, you're a miracle. This is why I wanted you on the show. I heard you speak, and I just was like, and I had thought about it before that too, and then I was just like, yeah, God, what are you saying? And God's like, yes, and I'm like, okay, I hear you. And so I'm so thrilled. So we're nearing the end of the hour. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
I think for me I think it's super important to be transparent, right? And to be open and to bring awareness to this. Because, like, what I've seen in my own recovery, working in treatment, wherever area of my life, is that there's a lot of shame and stigma still.
Yeah.
As much as it is out there, you know what I mean? There's still, and this is not something that's isolated to you or me or him or her. It's everybody, everywhere is affected by this in some way, shape, or form. So whether it be homelessness, whether it be, you know what I mean? And on the homeless side, I would say that there's something I always go to because I'm a visual learner. 6 out of 10 people in America live paycheck to paycheck.
Mm.
That means 6 out of 10 people that you know in your life right now are a paycheck away from being homeless. So the homeless problem isn't going anywhere. The homeless situation, you know what I mean, isn't going anywhere.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's very, and honestly, one of the things that motivates people to stay in their jobs is because they're afraid of being homeless.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the biggest fears. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to be homeless.
Yeah.
This is something you hear a lot of people say. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like if we're willing to do the next right thing and we're trusting, you know, not just in a power greater than ourselves, but in the community that we've built up around us, our support system, you know, maybe we have a bigger buffer than we think we do when we're in fear.
For sure.
And it's important to surround ourselves with people who are also focused on the solution.
And what a gift to be in recovery, though, right? Like,
you have to be in recovery, not just sober,
yeah,
not just off of drugs and alcohol, but actually like going within and being willing to be transparent, honest,
yeah,
sharing with other people, and wanting to be helpful.
I think about this all the time. Like when my birthdays are coming up, right? Mm-hmm. I tend to contemplate a little bit more and think about it. And
everybody does that, yeah.
And I'm a visual learner, right? So
right.
Like, if my house burnt down today, I probably have 30 places I could go.
Right.
And it's no big deal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Not that you'd want it, but
right.
It wouldn't be the end of the world.
At all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My car broke down recently. I just gave it up. Like, I'm good. I'll be all right.
Yep.
Like, it's just like the freeness, like that freedom that they talk about in recovery is like, I just have complete faith. You know what I mean? Yeah,
there is. I was actually, I'll say this last thing. I was actually thinking about this, that there's, you know, so when I was homeless, I didn't have the same homeless experience. I was without a home, and because, you know, I used my cuteness, found couches and sometimes beds, don't judge me, to be. And so, and relationships that weren't relationships, you know, like I you know, anyway, so, and I was thinking about how like the best headspace I'm ever in is this, I'm a nomad. Even though I seem to have a house right now that I live in, and I have a car, and I have the recovery store in the meeting space, I can't think like that I have these things and that like I'm identified with these things, because when I start to get too identified, I start taking myself too seriously, and there's a little less God and a lot more me, and a little bit more or less God and a lot more me. And there's something about wearing life like a loose garment. There's something about not actually physically being homeless, but mentally, like, my home is with my intuition. Like, my home is with God. And, you know, and if, you know, the meeting space doesn't make it or something like that. Not that I would want that.
Right.
Right? But if something doesn't then that's then what God wants, you know, and then he'll have me do something else. You know, and to live in that headspace rather than you know, worried, you know, like you own the house, it owns you. Yeah. You know, you own the car, it owns you. Don't touch my car, don't scratch my car, don't this is, you know, like it's like we become imprisoned by our own identification with things and having, and then we're afraid. And so we have this ridiculous fear, right, of being homeless.
Yeah. Right?
But if we're doing the next right thing and we're in recovery and we're wanting to heal, we're projecting some experience that's when we're not doing the next right thing. Like there's a lot more of a resource and support and God than we realize, as long as we're putting our higher power first.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for joining us on the Real Recovery Show. And we'd like to give a special thanks again, even though I did so ad nauseum in the beginning, to our gracious host, PHLV Radio here in Las Vegas. See you next week.